Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. I'm the Magi and welcome to Midweek Magic, where I want you to grow your collection by winning 2 free rare or better ICRs each and every week. This week our attention shifts to the Alchemy format, and love it or hate it, this is a very different format than it was just a couple of weeks ago. So in this video, we're going to talk about what has changed and how that is likely to impact your decisions in approaching this midweek magic, and whether alchemy might be an investment worth making for your collection. I'd also like to take a moment to discuss the known information about this week's event. Originally announced as Into the Future, where they give us typically 5 pre-made decks to play around with that kind of showcase the new additions to the format. It was then updated to Alchemy Constructed. That change was made the week of August 4th. And I'm interpreting Alchemy Constructed here to be an all-access event. I may end up being wrong about that. We'll just have to see. But ultimately, I think this was a change made to free up time for the no doubt understaffed Alchemy team. Instead of having to make 5 decks, it's easier just to code the event to give us all access to all the cards to play around with and let us brew ourselves. I think this is indicative of the sort of thing that we will see from the Arena team, not just in midweek Magic formats, but across the board, freeing up time so less people can do more work. It seems to be an ongoing problem for the Arena team. But before we get into all that, this whole midweek Magic thing has become a bit of a tradition here at the Stronghold, and it all started with our crack team of researchers discovering that we were the only YouTube channel making consistent, proactive, and timely midweek Magic coverage. And here we are years later, and it appears that we're still the only ones out there doing it for the budget community. So be sure to subscribe to the Planeswalker Stronghold so that we can be here for you every chance we get. Now, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, right. Similar to Standard, Alchemy just underwent a rotation in which it lost a total of 8 sets. The standard legal sets of Wilds of Eldraine, Lost Caverns of Ixalan, Murders at Karlov Manor, and Outlaws of Thunder Junction, plus each of those sets corresponding Alchemy mini set. One of the big takeaways about Alchemy right now is that this rotation, along with Alchemy's 2-year nature as opposed to Standard's 3-year rotation basis, and the fact that Foundations and Final Fantasy did not receive Alchemy subsets, well, to put it frankly, Alchemy is really small by comparison, about half the size of Standard right now, maybe even less. Frankly, I didn't do the math. The second big takeaway for Alchemy is that the Heist mechanic is not legal in the format anymore. It rotated out with the Outlaws of Thunder Junction. For those that somehow avoided this catastrophe of a mechanic, Heist is a way to take and cast your opponent's spells. It allows a player to steal a random card for future use. When a player commits a Heist, 3 random non-land cards from the opponent's deck are presented, and the player may choose one to exile. That card can be cast from exile for the remainder of the game. Now, mechanical attributes aside, this was pretty universally hated. It made the entire format much less appealing. And in fact, there was basically 2 camps in Alchemy. Those that were playing the Heist deck and those that hated playing against the Heist deck. But all of that's gone now. We potentially have a much more interesting, fair, and more fun format available to us. As some of you no doubt already know, the dual land sequence, commonly referred to as the check lands have been added to Alchemy to alleviate some of the mana base issues that Wizards kind of saw coming there. If you're an old timer like me, you probably have at least a one of each of these, as they were included in the starter decks at least 1 year, and if memory serves, it was actually 2. So don't be surprised, again, you might have some of these hiding in your collection out there. They have been added to packs for the Edge of Eternities Alchemy, and became illegal in Alchemy as of rotation long before the Alchemy set was released. And by long, I mean about 3 weeks. At any rate, unless Alchemy is your jam, I would not bear these a lot of mind, because really they're not very playable outside of Alchemy. They're only illegal in Eternal formats like Brawl, Historic, Pioneer, and Timeless. And really, the overall power level is not sufficient to warrant crafting these for those purposes. Instead, I would look to play color combinations that you already have an existing mana base for, that you could port over into Alchemy, or consider playing color combinations that support the 5 shock lands in the standard Edge of Eternities packs. Those are much better investments, not just for Alchemy, but also standard and all of your Eternal formats. Edge of Eternities is the final Alchemy set scheduled for the 2025 calendar year. And with that in mind, there are still a number of cards to consider, particularly as budget players, that will continue to get use not only for the remainder of 2025, but the 2026 calendar year as well, before finally rotating in early 2027. Let's take a look. First, and perhaps foremost, we've got the Desert Cenote, which is not only the most fun card name to say in Alchemy, it's also a flexible rare dual land that will fit into all of your Alchemy decks over the next roughly year and a half, but also continue to be used in formats like Brawl and Historic as, again, a flexible, multicolor rare dual land. For those who haven't seen it before, it enters tapped, and as it does, you choose 2 colors from amongst colors represented by cards in your hand. It can either tap for a colorless or 1 mana of a chosen color. So again, this will fit into all of your multicolor decks and provide valuable, flexible fixing. I highly recommend this card, even if you aren't going to be playing much of Alchemy. This is a tremendous addition to Brawl. So, craft one. Next up, we've got Waystone's Guidance, a 2-mana enchantment. Attacking tokens you control get +1/+0, and whenever you cast your first creature spell each turn, that spell gains Mobilize 2. Interestingly enough, that is in addition to any Mobilize factor it already has. Those will trigger independently. Whether you are building something like the Simply Mardu strategy that I talked about as a budget constructed deck, or you are looking at a Zergo Brawl deck, both of which were featured right here on this channel as budget options, this card is kind of a must. I would say 3 to 4 copies for your constructed deck, and of course a singleton for Brawl. So craft according to your needs. Very similarly, the Golden Sidekick Uncommon fits very nicely into a budget Bloomborough Bats deck, or into a Zorline Commander Brawl deck. So again, consider these as potentials for your needs in either Alchemy or Brawl. And last but certainly not least, Song of Seasons, a 3-mana sorcery, fits very nicely into the emerging landfall strategies We haven't really seen these come to fruition in Alchemy just yet, but it's only a matter of time. This sorcery allows you to seek a mountain, a forest, and a land that is neither a mountain nor a forest. One goes onto the battlefield, one goes into your graveyard, and one goes into your hand. With accessing 3 lands at once, not only are you thinning tremendously your deck, but also gives you 3 lands to work with in various forms for those landfall strategies. This one has a lot of upside potential that hasn't really found a place just yet. Alright, so let's start talking about what Edge of Eternities is bringing to Alchemy. So you remember a couple of minutes ago when I told you Heist was gone and what a great thing this was for the format? Well, I inadvertently lied to you, because not only did I forget that Poltergeist is an ongoing existing card in the Alchemy 25 collection, but there is an additional Heist card being added in Edges of Eternity. I don't know why we're getting cards in newer sets for mechanics that were clearly tied to last year's set, but here we are. Luckily, it's only 2 cards at this point, and not enough to really build a dedicated deck around, but you will still see people playing this particular mechanical nightmare. Alright, so what do you say we move on to something that has less of the stench of failure associated with my ability to do research? This is a card that everyone, regardless of how they feel or interact with Alchemy, is more than likely going to want to consider crafting, if for no other reason, for your Brawl decks, and that is Spirited Simulacrum, which is going to sound awfully familiar to his sad robot friend. This is basically a reprint with an arguably more relevant creature type, at least at the current state. It is a 4 mana robot with a 2/1 stat line as opposed to a 2/2. When it enters, you seek a land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped. That is essentially the same thing that Solemn does. When this creature leaves the battlefield, seek a non-land card. So it's very similar to the draw effect, except you're guaranteed to not draw a land. Solemn Simulacrum is pretty much a value engine in the idea that it is a 3-for-1. It's going to tutor you up a land, it's going to draw you a card, and it's going to put a 2/2 body onto the field that you are incentivized to chump block with. The Spirited Simulacrum, which I guess we have to call Energetic Robot, I don't know, is at least a 5-for-1, because it does the same land and draw sort of things, but because of a warp cost on the card, it's going to do each one of those twice. It's also at least one time going to give you that 2/1 body that, again, you're incentivized to chump block with. And if you could find a way to use its 2/1 body that first time you worked it into play, you might even get a 6-for-1 out of this. That is just unbelievable value that no one should be passing up. Next up, we need to talk about Thought Partition, a 1-mana sorcery at uncommon. This is not quite a color-shifted Thoughtseize, which, if you're not familiar, Thoughtseize is one of the most powerful cards in the Eternal formats, but it comes pretty darn close. Your opponent reveals all non-land cards in their hand, so I guess you'll know the quantity of lands, but not the makeup that they have. You may choose one of those revealed cards. If you do, it perpetually becomes white, and mana cost perpetually comes 5 colorless mana. So this shifts it way back in their turn order and can really throw a deck for your opponent way off its mana curve and its game plan right after they have just made a mulligan decision based on the contents of that hand. Look for this to be very powerful. You no doubt have heard me speak a couple of times about black needing to be a little propped up, particularly at lower rarities, mostly because the void mechanic was a little harder to consistently trigger than you might have expected. And they have definitely attempted to prop up black with this alchemy release. Mostly this is built around Cantor of Refrain, a single black mana 2/1 human pilot creature which cannot block. When you cast a spell for its warp cost, return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield under its owner's control, and it perpetually gets +1/+0. So it's kind of like those skeleton effect cards that just keep bouncing back from the graveyard in various ways, with the added ability that this one gets a little bit stronger. They also propped up this mechanic with at least 2 other cards in black that will help trigger this through warp, or puts additional copies of Cantor of Refrain into your graveyard to then be essentially reanimated. On the other hand, red certainly got the most powerful uncommon in the mini set, at least in my opinion. Mind Security, a 2 mana 3/1 Kavu Soldier with Trample. When it enters, you conjure a card named Flametongue Kavu into the top 8 cards of your library at random. It perpetually gains, get this, you may pay 0 rather than pay this spell's mana cost. So a Flametongue Kavu that costs nothing to cast deals 4 damage to target creature and leaves a 4/2 body on your side of the field. That's just incredible value that maybe red needed, particularly for limited, but this might end up being extremely powerful outside of that context. Maybe too much so. But green would not be undone with 2 uncommons that I feel like are worth talking about. The first being the Mutable Pupa. This 1 mana 1/1 insect has Evolve, which for those that don't remember that particular mechanic means it gets bigger through the means of a +1/+1 counter every time you play an additional creature that is larger than that. So it's a 1-drop that will grow and hopefully remain relevant over time. And it reminds me a lot of when they first introduced Alchemy, and they introduced a wolf pup card that got bigger every time a wolf entered the battlefield. And that remained one of the most powerful uncommons in the emerging format until it rotated nearly 2 years later. And second, arguably less impressively, is the Life Seed, a 1 mana artifact at uncommon. When it enters, you draft a card from the spellbook, and it has an impressive number and variety of lands in that spellbook. I think if you're trying to build a deck that cares about differently named lands, for instance, this is probably the piece that will allow you to do it very efficiently, making Alchemy the correct format choice. The Life Seed also taps for 1 mana of any color, but that can only be used to activate abilities of land sources. So you could splash, for instance, using multicolored man lands that are otherwise standard legal and things like that, and really facilitate some different things going on there. When I first saw Val Maroon Surveyor spoiled, I have to say my initial response, revolving around these mechanical keywords of discover, investigate, scry, surveil, seek, that where's the blue? All of those keywords really make me think of blue first and foremost, and then Val isn't blue at all. But then another individual brought up the Tressalera Moon Dancer infinite damage combo, and suddenly it all became quite clear. This is one of those infinite combos that really only needs 2 cards, although technically you need a 3rd card to trigger one of those mechanical abilities like Surveil. But once you do so, it will continue to ping your opponent until they're dead. Pretty simple there. I'm sure that you will see this in the jank queues of Historic for some time. until people just get bored of it. But until then, brace yourself. And last, but certainly not least, the 5 colors Sliver Weft Winder basically gives you a sliver collection in a single card. It is a mythic, it is legendary. Even a dedicated player probably isn't going to want more than one of these in their collection. But the idea that slivers gain warp for 3, as well as conjuring a random card from the slivers spellbook into the top 10 cards of your library, then draw a card. It basically gives you the sliver collection you always wanted, but could never free up the wild cards for. So for a certain type of player, this is going to be a very interesting card, but admittedly, it's not going to be for everyone. But hey, to a lot of folks, this is a fun and different draft environment. And well, in that light, there's really no reason to not do this if you are so inclined. Now, just like any time we talk about alchemy, be sure to adjust your personal budget and purchase of the main set packs according to your alchemy needs. In other words, right now we're recommending about a 45 pack purchase. So some of that will be main set, some of that will be alchemy. The world is your oyster. You decide how much of each you're interested in picking up. And of course, another tradition that continues to exist is the Alchemist Bundle offer each and every alchemy season, in which you can buy 20 of the new alchemy packs for the cost of 15. Of course, this also will net you 2 golden packs, all at about a 25% discount. And while I know alchemy is not going to be for every arena player, if it is for you, I always recommend trying to complete the uncommon playset. That means opening about 28 packs on average. The bundle would give you access to 20 at a discount. Of course, we typically get 3 free packs in our inbox, and that would mean you'd want to buy about 5 additional packs to really statistically get that uncommon playset. And hey, just in case you didn't catch all that, Matt would like you to know that the deck list that we discussed in this video is going to have a link down in the doobly-doo to take you over to Aetherhub, along with a link to any other alternative lists that you might wish to consider. He only asks that you give it a little thumbs up when you're over there checking out the deck list. And I plan on live playing this event on Wednesday at 11 a.m. over on my Twitch channel, so definitely stop in and check it out. Because the Stronghold is so much more than just a YouTube channel, and you can find links to all of our other social media outlets in our profile. Because at the end of the day, we're all budget players. And as a community, we're stronger together. So like, comment, subscribe, follow, do all those things to show a little love. It's appreciated more than you know.